I know we're taking this project slowly, but I do still need to get stuff done on it. Yeah, you just draw on the ironing board there, it's fine. Okay, so let's talk plans for the honeymoon dress, which is what I'm referring to this one as, mostly because it's to wear on my honeymoon. So, these are the fabrics that I have. I have a bottle green crepe, a bottle green metallic organza, and a bottle green chantilly lace. I'm going to be layering those up. Now, the majority of this fabric is polyester, which is not my preference, but given that it's for a formal dress, it's not going to be getting a huge amount of wear, which means it's not going to be getting a huge amount of washing, and it'll be a useful thing to have in my wardrobe for when I need something a bit smarter than my usual going out clothes. So whilst I would like to have had it in cottons and silks and that kind of thing, realistically speaking, that would have been cost prohibitive, particularly once you start thinking about cost per wear. So this is one of the situations where you have to sort of make do with what you can get hold of. So let's think about what I'm planning for this particular dress. Now, I am still developing my Procreate skills. I've inserted into Procreate one of my what are they called? Crookies. So that's underneath the bottom there. I'll just put it into black so you can see it. I usually have it inverted so it's less obvious. Okay, so this is my concept. So we've got the crepe as the lining, the metallic organza over the top of that, and then the chantilly lace over the top. Thinking possibly flutter sleeves. And I went for my original concept to find a pattern that would work for it, and then I've tweaked from there with the pattern in mind. I may or may not do a slit in the skirt, we'll see. But I definitely wanted something with a fitted bodice and a kind of A-line skirt. So it's fairly simple, so that if it's a dinner out, I can dress it down a little bit, depending on my choice of shoes and jewellery and hairstyle, but that would fit for the formal nights on the cruise that we're going on for honeymoon. So not like ball gown, but a bit more elevated than what I already have. So if I put that to one side and just grab the picture of the pattern that I've picked out. So this is Ewe Sew's Lorraine dress. And I'll go through where I'm tweaking and why this one appealed in a second. Now, the Ewe Sew's patterns are not particularly size inclusive. I am larger than the largest size. So there will be extensive toiling and tweaking going on. However, this booklet was included in with the pattern, which has your basic pattern adjustments in there. So things like full bust adjustment, lengthening, shortening, that kind of thing. It doesn't particularly help me with this pattern, and I'll explain why in a second. But I think that's a useful thing to have, particularly with a less inclusive pattern, because it does enable people who don't fit into the standard sizes to play around with it a little bit more, and it sort of handholds you through the process of doing that. Also, the instructions for the pattern are done as a photo tutorial, throughout the entire process you've got images showing you what you're supposed to be doing. So if we look at the line drawing, that's going to give a bit of better sense against the Procreate version that I've done. So we've got a waist seam, we've got princess seams in the bodice, and we've got a cup situation, and we've got these long straps which tie in bows in the original version. The straps are also pleated into the bodice. Now, obviously, I'm not looking at bows. I'm considering flutter sleeves, so I am going to definitely need to adjust the straps. Thinking of doing a strap in the crepe and the organza underneath whatever lace sleeve I do, and to sort of anchor that lace in place and help hold up the dress, so the sleeves are just there sort of decoratively rather than being structural. So obviously I'm going to need to tweak those straps. I do like the pleat feature. I don't know if it's going to work for this concept. So yeah, so I'll be making up the full bodice, barring the ruching, with the sleeves so that I can adjust them, with the straps, so I can adjust them to the length that I want. This ruched bit is an overlay, so you can possibly see it better in the sample made up. So that's on top of the bodice. So I'm going to omit this bit and work with the cups. So my first step is going to be making up a toile of the bodice, starting with the cups that are underneath this overlay to get them to fit, and making sure that the length of the bodice meets my waist. Now I am short-waisted. In the pattern, the instructions are for the piece that goes here, it tells you to cut that out on the fold, and it's not immediately clear, looking at the pattern piece, which direction. The fold line doesn't seem to be marked on the pattern piece. But from the shape of it, it sort of curves up in the middle, and it's quite short. I think it's obviously going to need to be horizontal, that you're cutting it on the fold to get the length right. So that piece may need a bit of adjusting for length. The side pieces maybe need a bit of adjusting for length. But I'm going to start with the cup portion. So the upper cup, lower cup, and the side panels for the cups, get that fitting as well as I can, using the information that's out there for fitting bras. Ewe Sews has some good videos on how to fit bras, but it's essentially the same sort of structure as bra cups and what have you. From the cups, I should then be able to work out how much I need to add into the bodice to get it to fit me, because as I say, I am larger than the pattern, so yeah, there will be sizing up going on. And once I've got the bodice sorted out, then I can sort out the skirt. I will toile the skirt in full so that I can decide whether or not I want the slit or the non-slit version. But I was drawn to this particular pattern because of the sort of sweetheart-ish neckline and because of the shape of the skirt. The other dresses that I found that were similar didn't have the skirt in the same sort of shape. They were straighter skirts or they were circle skirts, and they didn't quite have the same shaping at the top as this one does. So yes, there is some tweaking to be done. The straps clearly are going to be tweaked. I'll probably end up going for straight straps to attach any sleeves onto that I go for, and the overlay is going to be omitted. But other than tweaking the straps and potentially putting in a slit into the skirt, there's not a huge amount of changes to the style lines of this pattern, which, given that I knew I was going to have to grade up regardless of which pattern I chose, because why on earth would sizes go up above like small? I'm not huge. I'm on the larger side of average, but I'm not a huge sewist. So yeah, why on earth would dress patterns accommodate all body types? Because that would just be sensible. So yeah, so I knew I was going to have to grade up regardless. So I didn't want to have to do too many other adjustments to the pattern. And when I sew up the final piece, I will be flat laying the bodice, flat lining it with the crepe, the organza and the lace together so that I can work all three fabrics as one. The skirt, I will just be joining them at the waist, I believe. Not quite sure how I'll handle the slit. I might have to do a bit of research on that because I want a bit more movement in the skirt. So yeah, so that's the plan. So I need to get the fabrics washed, find my toile, well, unbury my toile fabric. I know where it is. It's underneath stuff that I need to sort out. Toile up the bodice, and once the bodice is right, I can then get the skirt. I think there's going to be a couple of weeks at least to work on this particular project, because obviously I want to get it right. Yeah, so let's get to it. Okay, so most of the adjustments I need to make are, well, I need to grade up bust, waist and hips, but the larger difference is in the waist and the hips, and I'm not entirely sure whether I'll need to grade in the cups at all, or whether it's more the back and the side seams that are going to need to be graded out, and that is the smallest difference from the pattern to me. So I'm going to start by cutting out the cups as they are, and I'll insert fabric, take fabric out as needed to get them to fit, and then we're working on getting the rest of the bodice to fit based off the size of the cups. I'm going to be using the fabric from the Toile as the pattern for my final piece, because I have a feeling there's going to be quite a few bits, certainly in the bodice, that need adjusting. So it seems more sensible to just work the Toile up and then open up the actual seams for the pattern. Leo, nobody needs to see your bottom. Open up the actual seams for the pattern to then use that as pattern pieces for the finished piece. So as soon as the cat stops scent marking the iron, I'll make a start on getting the cup peak portion of the bodice cut out. And yeah, we'll go from there. Oh, bless you. I was hoping the Toile wouldn't take all that long. Someone doesn't want me to get started. Because the bodice pieces are quite small, I'm just going to cut them out on the ironing board. Then I don't have to crawl around the floor. It's also better for the back and what have you. So obviously when we get to the skirt, that'll need to be cut out downstairs on the living room floor. So yeah, you're being helpful, aren't you, Leo? Pets, you'd have them. Okay, one thing to watch on this pattern when you get to the bust cups is the grain lines, particularly on the upper and lower bust. So it's looks like a bit of a bias that has been cut on. Not like a total bias, or maybe on the top panel. But, it's not how I expected them to lie on the fabric, put it that way. Whilst I'm getting these pinned down and cut out, I've already cut out the side bust cup side panels. I've cut out 4 of these. Obviously I've only got 2 boobs, but the part of the purpose of doing a toile is to familiarise the construction pattern, the construction methods, as well as getting the fit right. So I'm doing everything apart from interfacing for this portion. I won't do the back facing on the bodice because I'm in the final version. I'm going to line it, just because that's my preference. So I've done I'm going to do the 4 for the side panels. I'm assuming they're going to be double layer. But also help give me a sense of how much support there's going to be in this bodice. It's no boning in it. It's just the fabric. So we'll see, because that will make a difference to how I do the sleeves. I'm going to have to wear a bra underneath it. Then that makes a difference to where the sleeves need to sit. And the thickness of any straps I put in, that kind of thing. But, yeah, so get these cups cut out and we'll see how the sewing goes. I think this should also help me when I come to sewing up my bras, because I still haven't got as far as toiling them and getting them made, but it's on the list. In fact, they're sat in my waiting to be sewn baskets, which are behind me at the moment. So I'm trying to bring order in slowly to this room. But, I need to have another day of sorting stuff out in here and taming the chaos. But again, we'll get there. We'll get there. For this toile, I'm just using some polycotton that I have in stash in abundance, left over from the before times. Well, I say the before times, the black hole years. It's not something I would be using for regular garments, because I don't particularly like the feel of it when I'm wearing it. So this is why I'm leaning more into natural fibres, although this dress is going to be largely polyester. I prefer the feel of natural fibres. So that's why I'm trying to lean more into that when I can get them at a price that I can afford for the project that I'm trying to work on. Okay, so that's the bottom panel of the bust. I've obviously cut out the largest size because my full bust measurement and my upper bust measurement put me above the largest size, but that looks pretty big for a cup, so I may need to take fabric out of the cup. What I suspect is going on with this pattern is that it's designed for someone who is slimmer but bustier than I am. So I suspect, and I don't know if this is going to be the case, but I suspect that I'm going to need to put more fabric into the back and take it out of the bust to get it to fit, because I'm quite broad backed in relation to my boobs. So yeah, that's why we do this. Okay, so I've cut out my cup pieces and I've had a look through the instructions for this portion of the bodice, and I've realised that I only actually needed to cut out 2 of these because I'm omitting the ruched bit across the exterior, and instead I'm going to end up doing 2 layers of the other bust corset, so the outer and then the lining, and one of these goes on the bit I'm omitting, so that's fine. I will obviously get more support from the cups once they're interfaced and lined anyway, particularly where on the final one I'm getting multiple layers of fabric, but we'll see. Okay, so I need to cut in my notches, and so the curved edges of the cups together, add the side pieces on and work out how much the wrong size these are, because it's got the cups in. It is tricky to guess where the adjustments need to be made with just the bust measurement, because obviously boobs stick out the front and the back's fairly flat. So yeah, so you kind of have to make them up to work it out. If I get stuck with making the adjustments, I will be looking up on YouTube lots of bra making tutorials. I know Liz Sew's done some, and Minerva I think are just starting to release lingerie making tutorials. The Liz Sew ones are very good. I'll be using them when I actually come to make my bras. But, at least one of the patterns, at least one of the patterns I've got she's made, I think. She might have made both of them. It's been a little while since I looked up those, because they've been sitting waiting for so long. And yes, I'm going to turn to the sewing machine, get these curved seams sewn up and pressed on the tailor's ham. I won't do the top stitching and that sort of stuff on it because I'm only going to be cutting these out to use as patterns once they're fully adjusted. Just thinking, do I put the side panels on before I do the adjustments? After I do the adjustments? Do I check each cup before I join them in the middle? I'm going to have a bit of an experiment. It may involve lots of Googling. Right, off we go. so we have cups. Obviously they're not sewn together at the centre yet, and I've not put the side panels on. They don't seem to be as far adrift as I thought they might be, because they look huge in the fabric. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue making this section. So I'm going to join them at the centre and put the side panels on, and then see where we're at. Obviously it's a little hard to tell the fit because I do have on clothes, so it's not like next to my body, but there are some things I'm not putting on the internet. So yeah, so we'll join them in the centre cup, get the side panels on and see how far around they come. I'd like the side panels to sort of hit the side seam of where this top is, because that should then give me a good sense that the front is at least going to fit. But I do think I'm going to need to, yes I know, to widen some parts of the bodice. Shush! So yes, I do think I'm going to have to widen some parts of the bodice. It's just a question of where. Leo, the iron is on. You do not go on the ironing board when the iron is on. But like I said, I think it may well be across the back that I need to put most of that in. So onwards. Not on the ironing board when the iron is on. This cat's going to singe his whiskers. Yeah, I've had to press some seams on the tailor's ham, which means you can't go on the ironing board. What I might do is switch the iron off whilst I do the next bit, because he will just keep trying to climb on it. Okay, much to my surprise, I've not had to make any major adjustments at this point. There will be some fine tuning of fit once I've got the whole bodice together and I have it actually on my body properly. But just holding up this section to me, that it doesn't seem to be too far adrift. Now it may be that the amount of ease that is built into the pattern, it's designed to have I think 4 centimetres of ease in the bust. It may well be that that is helping me out a bit here, but also the fact that I am just holding this up against my body over clothes rather than having it on properly, because there's nothing to hold it up at the moment. That is in itself disguising any adjustments that may need making. So I will proceed and get the bottom of the front of the bodice made and the back made up, and see where we're at. So I'll come back to you when we're at that point, and we'll look at making fine adjustments there. The pattern is designed with a zip in the back, which I will be doing on the final version, but for the purposes of fitting whilst I'm buying it myself, I will sew up that centre seam, I think. Yeah, I'll sew it up rather than trying to put a zip in, mostly because it means I then don't have to find a zip, and I'll pin it under the arm, because fine-tuning side seams I can do on the final project if I need to, because it's still fitting as you make up the final one anyway. Just want to make sure that it's pretty close to what I want it to be in the Toile fabric before I make it up in the final fabric. But yeah, I am a little surprised that I've not had to make more adjustments so far. The cups were the bits I was the most concerned about fitting. So yeah, it will be interesting to see how they are once the whole bodice is together. I think they will be a little too voluminous for me. I think I will need to take out some of the volume along the seam between the upper and lower cup. But yeah, it's not too bad. And the side panels are sitting pretty much where I want them to, where the seam is on my t-shirt. I'm using that as a guideline for where things fit. So that does, as I say, suggest to me that the majority of the increase that I need to make for the fabric will be in the back panels, which makes sense, because I know I'm quite broad backed in relation to the size of my bust. So yeah, so it makes sense that that's where the majority of the addition is going to be needed. So I will I think I will cut out the back pieces with a little bit of extra to be on the safe side. Not that I can't cut through them and add more fabric in, but so as based on the finished garment measurements in the pattern, I believe that I need 4 centimetres. Where's my sizings? 6 centimetres around the bust, 12 around the waist, and 14 around the hips. So I am expecting to need to increase the bodice somewhat. So yes, we'll cut those. Yeah, can't really cut the front ones wider because then it won't fit with the cups. Okay, so we had a fair amount of cat-related delays on my last sewing session. So we have the bust portion put together, but I haven't got any further. So I'd really like to get the rest of the bodice done today if I can, in terms of the toiling, and make those tweaks that I can't really make until I've got the whole thing together. But hopefully the cat will leave us alone. He's currently asleep on the sofa, so we'll see. Yeah, so I'm kind of doing things out of order with this toile compared to what the pattern instructions say. The pattern instructions have you do the bottom of the bodice first and then the bust portion, whereas I sort of flip that round. And I am going to need to make some adjustments to that bottom portion of the bodice. Now, I had in my head that I needed to make a large increase to the sides of the bodice, which is why I was a little bit surprised when I was holding the bust piece up and it wasn't far off. I'm not going to say it's right, it's because I don't think it is yet, but I won't be able to tell that until the whole thing is there. But in my head, I work in inches when I'm sewing. I buy my fabric in meters, but I measure myself in inches because I'm a Brit and we do that. But the pattern measurements are all in centimeters. So for the purposes of this toile, this pattern, I'm having to work in centimeters. So I only actually have 6 centimeters to add to the bust, which is not a huge amount. As I say, most of that's probably going to be coming in the back, and 12 centimeters at the waist, 14 centimeters at the hips, which I don't need to worry about until I get to the skirt, and I suspect the skirt will pretty much sort that out anyway because it's A-line. But yeah, 12 centimeters to be added to the waist is, once you break it down by the seams, is not an awful lot. So let's do a quick bit of maths. Okay, maths reject. We're going to be increasing for the waist everywhere apart from the zip seam. I'm going to leave the zip seam as it is so that it stays nice and straight down the middle of my back. So we're going to add 2 centimeters to each of the other seams around the waist. So that's 1 centimeter on either side of the seam. And we're going to add 1 centimeter to the upper back side seams, just on the back pieces. And we can adjust that if the seam looks wonky once it's on, and move some of it into the side bust panels. And then we're going to add 0.5 centimeter to either side of the back seams at that same bust line point. So the back panels will be wider at the top than they are at the bottom. Okay, so I've adjusted all the paper patterns for the rest of the bodice. The seams, I've added the seam allowance to, these seams I've widened. The centre front piece, I've done it on a bit of a diagonal, but the other pieces I've done it the full length of the seam, which should be more than I need. And actually thinking about it, I need to adjust the ones for the front bodice a bit. I'm going to have to grade them in a bit, make them more of a slope like this one before I cut out the fabric. The reason being is the top seam of that bit has to fit with the cups. So if I change the width at the top, it's not going to fit. So I will just tweak them slightly and then get these cut out of fabric. That should still then give me space in the seams on the back to tweak and adjust and get the fit just right, or as close to as I can fitting on myself. So yeah, so this seam here I'm going to need to grade in a bit, and I'll probably need to adjust that one a bit so that they fit at the top with the bits that I've already sewn up, which is what I intended to do before I actually did it. Okay, so let's quickly do that. That's not going to be too difficult. Just need to find a nice curve to take them in at. Oh, that one will work nicely. So we'll take it in from there. We'll take it a bit further down. Part of this is experience from having done it before, and part of it is guesswork. So that's why we do mock-ups and toiles. Okay, little update for you. We've got the front all sewn together. That's fine. Looks roughly about right when I hold it up against my body. So we'll do some tweaking once everything's on. And I've sewn together the back piece and the other back piece, but I've sewn them both the same way round. For toile purposes, it doesn't matter too much. I'll just sew one of them on with the seam on the outside. But let this be a lesson that if your fabric looks the same on the front and the back, you need to mark which side is which, because otherwise you end up with two right backs. I only have one right back. Okay, moving onwards. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sew my two backs together at the zip seam, making sure that it's going to come out the right way around when I put it on the front bodice. So we'll sew together the zip seam, and then when I'm trying it on, I'll be pinning underneath the left arm, assuming I sew the back on the correct way around to the front. So, these things happen, but oh, they're annoying. Okay, so it is too big all over, but that's fine. It's not far off at the waist. Essentially, there's more ease in the pattern than it appears when you look at the picture of it made up. So that means I didn't need to add as much as I thought it did, because the finished measurements and what it actually comes out at is not quite the same. But that's okay, because it's drafted with 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, so I will increase the seam allowance. That will help with that, so I'll give that a try. And also the cups they've got too much volume for me, so I need to take some volume out of the cups a bit. The width of the bust section is not terrible. Side seams are sitting pretty much where I want them to be. There's just too much everywhere else. So I'm going to take in the seams a bit. I'll leave the zip seam as it is, because I did sew that seam at the drafted 4.5 centimetres, so 5/8 of an inch. Be the rest of the seams, I'm going to increase the seam allowance in all of those. I do mean literally all of them. That should help a bit with the cups. Actually, I won't do it here. The side cup bit I'll leave as it is, but the rest of them, I'll take that in to 5/8 of an inch seam, and go from there. Somehow I managed to not press record on the bit when I had the Toile on, having taken it in to 5/8 of an inch all the way around. Essentially, it's got it on the right lines, but the boobs, the cup shape's not right for me. So I am going to be retwiling, and I'm going to be taking the cups to more of a scoop underneath and bringing the point of the underbust up further, because I've got some excess fabric between the boobs, like sort of here, just below the cleavage, and the seam line across the middle cup sits nicely on my fullest part, so that's fine. There's just too much volume in between the boobs at the front, so whilst I was wearing it, I marked with biro where I felt like the shape needed to be, where the seam line needed to be. Just smoothing that out a bit. I only need one to be roughly right. So it's going to change the shape of the base piece as well as the top piece. The overall length is not too bad. I need to add seam allowance to the bottom, because the cut line is sitting roughly where my natural waist is. So I'm going to cut this apart and use this to create a pattern for a new toile. So I'm just going to mark what piece is what. So we've got upper bust, lower bust. I should probably mark the grain lines on as well. Side bust, that's probably going to need to be shortened a bit. Side front, centre front, side back, that's the side seam, centre back, and that's the zip. Okay, so I'm just going to cut these open. I'm essentially going to cut down the stitch line, so they'll be without seam allowance apart from the top. Yeah, that's where we're at. Okay, so I've brought out rather, the zip that I'm going to be using for the final dress, because I thought that might help with fitting the bodice. It's obviously longer than the bodice, so I should still be able to get it on with the zip in. I think I'm still going to zip it at the side for now, just for ease. I could do it at the back, but yeah, we need to get the adjusted pieces cut out again. And I think I'm probably going to cut out straps as well, so we can see how the back is fitting properly, because at the moment the top of the back is folding down because it would be attached to straps and held up. But we'll see. Get the bodice done first and then we'll sort the straps out. So yeah, so I've got my cut up piece of toile to see if the adjustments I've made are right. Because I've not made bras yet, I've gone ready to toile them, I just haven't done it. I've not really fitted the bust as much as this dress, so it's largely guesswork, so we'll see how we get on. Oh, I will have to remember to put seam allowance on almost all the way around these pieces, not the top, because I didn't sew anything to the top, but I do need to put seam allowance on all the side seams, because I cut the seam allowances off, and I'll need to put a bit of length on the bottom, so a seam allowance on the bottom, just to lengthen. It only needs that much to extend the bodice, I think. So yeah, so we'll get on with that. I'm going to draw around these, I think, so that I can see where the stitch line is and everything. Or at the very least, draw where I need to cut. Yeah, okay, let's go on with that. Okay, so I've made up the adjusted pieces, and as you can see, there's still issues with it. It's a bit loose, a bit too big around the middle, so that's going to be some taking in some seams. I'm thinking I need to take it out of the bottom of the back seams. Yeah, the side seam seems to be staying straight there. And I've got a bit too much fullness in the upper cup, so I think I need to slant that centre front seam, because I don't really want to be putting in darts into the cups. So yeah, so I think I need to take it out there. And I've got too much fabric here, so that'll be the shape of this base piece. I think I need more of a curve, just a lower point there. So that might be a fix it in the when I do the lining. But otherwise, I don't think we're far off. So I'll try taking in here. So that it's on a diagonal from where it meets the lower cups. So from here, diagonal up. I know it's looking weird at the moment whilst it's pinned, but... And then we'll also take in these back seams. Very hard to pin yourself behind your back, but that should give me a bit of an idea. Really need to pad my mannequin out so that I can do this sort of thing on the mannequin. So I'll try those adjustments and we'll worry about this later. And then we'll see where we're at. As you can see, I've tried these straps out from the pattern. I mean, it's a cute idea, it's just not very me. And I put the zip in the back. I don't like back zips, particularly on tops. I just find it a bit awkward, but it'll be fine for this dress. Okay, so a little bit of tweaking to do and we'll see where we're at. Okay, so I've made those tweaks. I'm going to leave this bit that's got the excess in until I've got the skirt on. So the weight of the skirt might pull it down a bit and change where I want to make the adjustments. And I think I will still need to adjust this seam because that's sitting lower than my boobs. But until I've got the skirt on and the final sleeves, that may change where that's sitting. And this is better. I think I probably want to bring it in a little bit further still. Some of these changes I can make when I do the lining. The back, it's better at the bottom. I think I need to take it in. Well, I know I need to take it in up the back seams a bit further because I've got a bit of gaping going on in the centre back. But that's not that big an issue to fix. So I'm not too worried about that. So we're going to leave it here for now in terms of working on the bodice fit, and we're going to get the skirt sorted out. I didn't obviously add in seam allowance evenly all the way around, so yeah. So we'll even up with the bodice, get the skirt attached, and see what that does to this section. And go from there with any final tweaking once we've got the weight of the skirt on. Once the skirt is on, I'm also going to draw out different sleeves because whilst this is cute, it's not really what I'm looking for. But, if you are somebody who would want to be wearing a bra with this sort of dress, you'd want to reposition the straps as well. So I'm hoping that I can get the fit on the cups good enough that when I'm wearing it with the lining, the bodice and the 2 layers of overlay, that I won't need a bra. We'll see. So yeah, it's not perfect yet, but it's on its way. Where are we at the moment in terms of the week? Right, it's Thursday today, and I want to get this edited and up for you for the weekend. So I will leave the skirt and the sleeve and any final tweaks to the next video on this dress, which may or may not be next week. We'll see how we go. I had hoped to get all the toile done this week, but it's a bit more complicated than I would like. But the final result should be good. Like I said, we're not a million miles away. I may not need to take as much out of that piece once the skirt is on. You can see where the seams are sitting on the side, on the apex. Obviously this bit's going to get turned down when the lining gets put in, so I'm not worried about wobbliness there. So yeah, it's on its way, as I say. Hoping to get the next bit of this video up for you next week, week after, soonish. But in the meantime, there's this one here that may be of interest to you, and I will see you next time. But until then, happy crafting, and bye-bye for now.